In the heart of Nazi-occupied Europe, a woman walked steadily toward a German checkpoint. Her heart pounded, but her face remained calm. The German soldiers looked at her with desire, unaware that they were facing the most dangerous spy of World War II. This woman wasn't just beautiful, she was deadly. And her true story is far more shocking than any James Bond film. Christine Granville wasn't her real name. She was born Maria Krystyna Janina Skarbek, into a Polish noble family. But when the Nazis invaded her country, she decided she wouldn't stand idly by. At 30, this Polish countess became the first female agent of the British MI6, and the most successful of the entire war. Her beauty was her most powerful weapon. Tall, elegant, with piercing green eyes and a smile that could disarm any enemy. But behind the model-like appearance was a brilliant mind that spoke 10 languages and a heart that knew no fear. The Germans underestimated her because she was a woman, and that was their biggest mistake. Christine began her spy career in the boldest way imaginable. She convinced the British to train her by pretending to be a Polish refugee. But in reality, she already had a much bigger plan. She wanted to return to occupied Europe and build a resistance network to undermine the Nazis. Her first mission took her to Hungary in 1940. Christine had been sent by the British Secret Service to establish contact with the Polish resistance in Warsaw. To get there, she had to cross the border illegally from Budapest. Traveling under a false identity with a Swiss passport in the name of Christine Gauthier, she moved cautiously between Gsthauses, embassies, and train stations. Her refined style masked the constant tension of being discovered. But the situation became dangerous. The Hungarian police and Gestapo began to follow her closely, and several of her collaborators were arrested. Still, Christine chose to stay. She knew her work was only beginning. When her main contact was captured, Christine realized she had very little time. If he confessed under torture, she'd be next. But instead of fleeing, she came up with a risky strategy. She voluntarily walked into a police station in Budapest, pretending to be a Hungarian countess gravely ill with tuberculosis. To make the act more convincing, she bit the inside of her cheek hard, filled her mouth with blood, and began coughing violently in front of the officers. No one wanted to come near. The performance was so convincing that not only did they not arrest her, they let her go for fear of infection. That same night, Christine left the city. With the help of a local guide, she crossed the Carpathian Mountains on foot, in the middle of winter, with snow up to her knees and below zero temperatures. Beneath her coat, she carried secret documents that needed to reach London. She walked for hours, evading border patrols, until she reached Polish territory. That journey was just the beginning of a legendary career in World War II espionage. But that was only the start. Christine discovered she had a natural talent for deception and manipulation. She could change identities as easily as changing clothes. One day she was a scared refugee, the next a French merchant, and later a German aristocrat. Each persona was flawlessly constructed, complete with gestures, accent, and backstory. Her fame reached the ears of Winston Churchill, who was fascinated by reports of this mysterious Polish agent. Churchill, who understood the value of a good spy, declared that Christine was the best we had. But she was only just beginning to prove her abilities. The mission that made her a legend took place in France, in the Alps near the town of Digny. Francis Kamertz, regional commander of the Special Operations Executive, SOE, and Zan Fielding, also an SOE agent, had been captured by the Gestapo, along with Danish resistance member Christian Sorensen. All three were imprisoned and sentenced to death, scheduled for execution at dawn. News reached Christine Granville through the local resistance network, which managed to get an urgent message to her while she was operating nearby. Attempting a rescue was a suicide mission. The place was heavily guarded, and the Germans expected a liberation attempt. But Christine not only accepted the mission, she promised to get them out alive. Christine Granville walked confidently toward the Gestapo headquarters in Digny-les-Bains, a small city nestled in the mountains of southeastern France. Surrounded by alpine valleys and peaks, Digny had been occupied by the Nazis and turned into a strategic control point. She carried herself with unshakable composure, though her pulse quickened. She had only hours to act and was about to face men used to killing without hesitation. But Christine carried something more powerful than a weapon: intelligence, cold blood, and a plan. She dressed modestly, her trench coat fluttering slightly in the afternoon breeze. She had rehearsed every word. She entered pretending to be the niece of a powerful British general. She spoke French and German with impeccable accents. Facing the commanding officer, she deployed her deadliest weapon, intelligence. With a firm voice, she warned that Allied forces knew exactly where the prisoners were, that they were nearby, and that if they were executed, there would be immediate retaliation. She slid a large sum of money across the desk, 2 million francs. The officer hesitated. She didn't blink. Minutes later, the three agents, Francis Kammertz, SOE Regional Commander, Zan Fielding, Special Operations Agent, and Christian Sorensen, Resistance Collaborator, were silently released out the back of the building. Christine waited outside in civilian clothes, as if it had all been routine. Not a single shot was fired. She won with nerves of steel and unmatched cunning. The real test began upon leaving the headquarters. The forged documents in their pockets could fail at the first checkpoint. The path to freedom was narrow, guarded by German patrols, and filled with unpredictable variables. But Christine had anticipated every detour, every useful shadow, every possible obstacle. With the help of the French resistance, guided by local contacts and shielded by the anonymity of night, they crossed valleys, avoided checkpoints, and entered the Alps. At every step, the risk of discovery was real. But Christine's calm mind led the group with the determination of someone who had already defeated death, and had no intention of losing now. The Gestapo headquarters remained silent, but the humiliation spread quickly. No one could understand how 3 death row prisoners had vanished without a shot fired. Christine didn't wait for answers. That same night, she changed her name, her appearance, and her route. She left the town like a shadow, while the Germans combed through documents, tracks, and unlocked doors, finding nothing. They didn't know who she was or how close she'd been. But in the days that followed, rumors began to circulate. A woman with a foreign accent, determined, elegant, invisible. The same one who would soon strike again, with a different face and a different name. Christine's story reached London, where British intelligence officers couldn't believe what they were reading. A woman had outwitted the Gestapo, rescued 2 agents, and escaped without a scratch. Churchill ordered she be decorated immediately, but Christine was already planning her next operation. Her methods were so effective that the Germans began training officers specifically to identify the Polish spy. They distributed manuals with her description and tactics. But Christine was always one step ahead. She changed her appearance, her walk, even her voice. It was as if she became a different person each time. For 3 years, Christine operated in enemy territory without being captured. She established resistance networks in Poland, Hungary, France, and Italy. She organized sabotage operations against German facilities, rescued dozens of Allied agents, and provided critical intelligence that shifted the outcome of major battles. Her favorite technique was seducing German officers to extract information. She used her beauty and charm to make men drop their guard, then pulled military secrets from them. But she never let emotions interfere with her work. She was cold, calculating, and utterly professional. One of her most impressive operations involved a German colonel who had fallen in love with her. The man proposed marriage, unaware that she was a spy. Christine used that relationship to obtain the blueprints of German defenses along the French coast, information crucial for the D-Day landings. By the time the war ended, Christine had completed more successful missions than any other Allied agent. She had outwitted the Gestapo dozens of times, rescued over 50 agents, and provided intelligence that saved thousands of lives. The British considered her their best spy, and the Germans feared her more than any army. Her story inspired Ian Fleming, creator of James Bond, who knew of her feats through British intelligence files. Many experts believe Christine was the inspiration behind the most iconic female characters in the Bond novels. Her blend of beauty, intelligence, and lethality became the model for the cinematic Bond girls. But Christine's life didn't end like a fairy tale. After the war, she struggled to adapt to civilian life. The governments she had risked her life for abandoned her. Poland was under Soviet control, and Britain, though it had honored her, offered her no real support. She had to work ordinary jobs: telephone operator, saleswoman, flight attendant. The woman who had been the most successful spy of World War II was now serving coffee on ships and selling goods in shops. It was a cruel irony that someone who had lived such an extraordinary life would end up in the monotony of the everyday. Her love life was also complicated. Men were drawn to her beauty and mystery, but few could handle her strength and independence. She had lived so much, seen so much, that normal relationships seemed dull. She needed the adrenaline of danger to feel alive. On June 15, 1952, Christine returned to her hotel in London after a regular day at work. In the lobby was Dennis Muldowney, a man she had met on the ship where she worked. He had developed an obsessive infatuation with her, and when Christine rejected his advances, his love turned to hatred. Muldowney attacked her with a knife, slashing her throat. Christine, who had survived years of dangerous missions against the Nazis, died on the floor of a London hotel, killed by a man who couldn't handle rejection. She was 47, and her death was as dramatic as her life. News of her death shocked the intelligence world. World War II veterans who knew of her exploits couldn't believe that the woman who had eluded the Gestapo had been murdered by a jealous man. It was the cruelest end imaginable for a war heroine. Christine Granville had been more than a spy. She was a force of nature. Her story proves that history's most extraordinary women are often the least known. While James Bond became a cultural icon, the real woman who inspired those characters died in anonymity. Her legacy lives on in every action film where a woman uses her intelligence and beauty to defeat villains. Every time we see a heroine who blends elegance with lethality, we're seeing the echo of Christine Granville. She created the archetype of the deadly female spy decades before it reached the screen. Christine's story reminds us that real heroes are often more impressive than fictional ones. Her life was a roller coaster of emotion, danger, and triumph that no Hollywood screenwriter would dare to imagine. She was a woman who defied every expectation of her time and proved that courage has no gender. Today, more than 70 years after her death, Christine Granville remains a fascinating mystery. British intelligence files still hold secrets about her operations, and we may never know the full truth about her feats. But what we do know is enough to affirm that she was one of the most extraordinary people of the 20th century. Her story is a reminder that beauty can be the most powerful weapon when combined with intelligence and courage. Christine Granville didn't just inspire the Bond girls. She was the original Bond girl, the real one, who lived adventures that would make spy films look dull. And that's a story worth telling, and remembering, forever. If you enjoyed this video about Christine Granville, the spy who inspired the creation of the Bond girls, please like, comment, and subscribe.